Hi, I'm Stacy.
And I'm Kristi.
We made it to the end of season 2, and we're going out on a topic that's been quietly running underneath almost every episode this season: personal style. Not fashion, art style. What it is, how it changes, whether you even need one, and what happens when the work you want to make doesn't match the brand you've been building. Stacy and I are sharing our own personal style journeys, processing some of it live, and wrapping up the season with a few things that surprised us along the way. Let's get into it.
Right, episode 10. Last episode of this season. We have talked about so many topics this season. Money, all the feelings. We both want to blow our businesses up, but we're still here. We're here with the last episode. And we today are going to talk about personal style when it comes to our artwork.
Yes, not
Lots
our
of feelings around that.
not our fashions.
Not our fashions. No, I would aspire to have personal style, but I do not. My style is casual.
Yeah, my style is Gap circa 1990.
Yes.
All right.
So, Stacy, can you describe, give us the kind of the lifespan of your artistic style in,
yeah,
in a brief
I mean, it's
description?
not, it's short. It's short. I mean, I started where I think many artists, where I feel like many artists start with pen and ink and watercolor. So early on, I took a few Skillshare classes by Samantha Dion Baker, and that is her style. Liz Steele, I took her watercolor course. That was also her style then. I feel like it's changed slightly. She's added some materials to her repertoire. So yeah, for a long time, I was doing watercolor with ink outline, or maybe you do the ink first, then you add the watercolor. Then I don't even remember how, but I started moving into using traditional gouache. And again, that was something that I had used in college, hated it, swore I would never do it, forgot about that, picked it up and started using it and really fell in love with it. I added to that the acrylic gouache. And my style at that point had kind of changed to be more flat and graphic. And I did that for a while. And then I started probably 3 years ago, maybe, when I started following Emma Carlisle on Patreon, is when I began to dabble into mixed media. So, not so much like acrylic paint, but like acrylic markers, pastel, colored pencil. And now I'm kind of at the point where right now I'm using gouache with colored pencil. That's kind of like, I would say, my primary go to. But then I'm also experimenting still with pastel and oil pastel. Yeah, I don't really know where that's going, but that's kind of that's been the evolution. What about you? What's your trajectory?
I would say I started, I bought some watercolors. I watched some watercolor classes. I can't even remember who, to be honest. Sorry. And next, what did I move on to? Really, I think it went from watercolor to block printing because I had that year of block printing, and then things get like really weird. Like I was still all this time I'm still block printing, but then like I'm taking my block prints and I'm turning them into vectors. And then that process is taking too long for me. So then I'm just drawing either like, on a piece of paper, taking a picture of it, redrawing it in Procreate, and turning that into vectors. Like it all is all vectors for quite a while, and no very little texture, very graphic. I also like have a degree in graphic design. I think it comes a lot from that. And then at some point, I actually around the time when I made my first calendar, I really wanted more texture. I wanted like risograph feel. So still within like a printmaking realm, but like this is digital now, so I don't know. Um, and so like, every year from then, I've been pretty much making my digital artwork with that Risograph brush set, and like just
Mm.
kind of keeping that all the same. But then like in parallel, I'm still always block printing and learning new things about how to block print and how to layer things. And then there's just like the fun stuff that I do for myself, which is, different kinds of ink, different kinds of, acrylics and flash paint and like all those different kinds of materials. But I would say those things, I never turn any of that artwork into like a product that is at the dot design. It's more like fun.
Mhm.
Um, but I would say, I have this very big struggle between like I have this very analog traditional block printing process, and then I have this very digital, Procreate, completely made on my iPad, risograph type art. And I'm always struggling to figure out, is it okay that I have these two styles and they don't, like, you don't see one and think, oh yeah, she made this, or vice versa. It's like two completely different things. Um, that was like lots of other questions in there, but that was essentially like my art journey.
Yeah. I mean, as you're talking, I'm thinking also because it has been over a year, question mark, that I've been working primarily with gouache and colored pencil. And it's also coinciding with the steep drop off of my pattern making. And I'm wondering just right now, as we're having this conversation, if there is a correlation. Um, and now that I'm even getting a little bit deeper into like this mixed media stuff, I'm enjoying it. And I really like playing with all of these materials. But sometimes I feel like, why am I doing this? Because it's not going to help me. I can't make patterns from this. What am I doing? Like, why am I drawing whatever this is that I'm drawing if I can't turn it into something? And the style is so different from like my patterns. Like I make patterns 90% of the time either in Procreate or Illustrator. In Procreate, you can get like you can get textures in Illustrator as well, but in
Yeah.
Procreate you can get textures based on the drawing tool that you use. Um, but like I'm not making my patterns in Photoshop. So the highly painted things that I make, I'm not scanning and trying to make something into a pattern from that. And I'm wondering now if all of this experimentation with this media is preventing me from making more patterns because I only have so much time. And so I feel like I'm spending all my time making things I want to make versus like making things for my business.
Yeah.
Because the two styles are very different.
Hmm.
I don't really know what to make of that. I'm just literally processing this live, guys.
I mean, I guess I always just wonder, like, does it matter? I feel like we both took the same pattern making course. And in that course and lots of other courses, it just is like you need a personal style. And I understand that because there are lots of artists where I can just see their work and I don't have to turn it over. I don't have to do anything. I look at it and I say, I know whose that is. That's pretty cool. But then I think about like the millions of other things in the world that have art on them. And I don't know who made that art. And that's fine, right? Like, I don't have to know who made it to know I like it.
Yeah, it is. I feel like I was sort of brought up in this industry to feel like you need to have a style, and that's what you build your brand on so that you become recognized. And you do that through the colors that you choose, which I have a thought about that as well. The colors that you choose, the marks that you make, your line work, your subject matter. Um, like I'm a human, my interests change. And so why wouldn't I follow that interest. I mean, again, this kind of goes back to like previous episodes. Maybe it was episode 8 where we were going through our existential crisis, which I think I'm still in. But like,
Same.
we only have like a limited amount of time. So why am I going to force myself to make something I'm not interested in just for the sake of it looking like everything else I've made before? Yeah. I don't know. I think I personally feel like we should evolve and our style should change. I will add to that also, having worked in art galleries, I know firsthand artists who become known for doing a certain thing. People want that. They want to buy those paintings that look like that thing that they're familiar with. And so when an artist changes their style, the collectors are usually like, I want that other thing. I don't want this new thing. And so there is a transition period before people get on board, if they ever get on board, and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Um, so it is a reality of, you know, here's this thing that I love to make, but I'm also interested in this other thing and I want to follow that. What happens when I switch? Am I going to lose my audience? How much do I care about that? Like what is important to me? I don't know. Um, yeah, it's sort of this fear of like your authority, I guess, in the way you built your brand up to this point, and then you kind of take a left turn, and are people going to follow you?
Yeah. I mean, do you think so? It sounds like for both of us, the through line in our work has never been like the medium. But maybe do you have subjects that you keep going back to? Do you have, like you said, you have thoughts about color? Do you have colors that you always return to? Like, is there anything that you can think of that is a through line?
I would say color for me is a through line. And this is one of the things I struggle with in making patterns, because I
Mm,
have colors that I am drawn to, and those are the colors that I use in my brand. I'll call it my brand.
mhm.
If I need to make a second colorway, I'm just like, no, like I want it like this. I don't really care. I've tried to think about like, colorways in terms of like day and night or seasons, like fall or spring or whatever. I just like the colors I use. And when I try to make that same pattern in a different colorway, it looks foreign to me and it looks nothing like me. So I definitely think that color for me is, um, I highly identify with the colors that I use. And when I try to step out of that, I don't know, I don't recognize what this is. And it's the same thing with my paint. Unfortunately, it took me 500 tubes of paint to find the 3 or 4 that I like. Same thing with colored pencils. Like, the ones that are 1 inch tall, clearly those are the colors that I like to use. Now, what am I going to do with the 100 other colored pencils that I have that I don't use? I don't know. So color is definitely a through line for me. Yeah. What about you?
Have like I know for you, I know what colors your brand uses. Like, and because I love those colors too.
And we have
Um,
different colors.
yeah, I feel like for me, it's not a specific set of colors, but it is like color is a huge part of my process. And then I think all of like I'd say if I had to say what a through line is with my work, it's like animals and plants. Like
Hmm.
I don't think I've made a single thing. I was trying to think the other day, like, have I drawn anything that's like from like the built world? Like
Man-made
I
world.
was just like, I mean, I drew some vases once. I was like, literally, I had nothing. Um, like every once in a while, I'll try something that's just like, oh, maybe I'll try drawing this, house, and I'm like, eh, like, so I mean, but that's so to me, plants and animals like that is so broad. Is it a through line? I don't know.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I used to have this like kind of like a mood board that was for my business that was like, these are the things that make your work yours. And so the thing that I always think about is I have on that mood board patterns inside of patterns. And I don't know that that actually bears out in all of my work, but it's something that I think about and that I like. When I see that, when I see there is a pattern, like say the pattern is floral, and then in the flowers, there is another pattern. Like it's, it just keeps going deeper. Um, which basically is like my way of saying like maximalism, you know, like
Thinking of
I
like
just
William
want,
Morris too, like kind of like the Art
mhm,
Nouveau style, where it's like not necessarily ornate, but it's this idea of like, yeah, there's patterns within. There's like so much detail. There's more than just like, whereas mine is much more flat. I don't really do a lot of that.
yeah. And I think that that's where I kind of feel like that's maybe the only through line between my traditional block printed work and my like digital block printed, I don't know, risograph work is that I still make the same marks within, like if I'm drawing an animal, I make the same marks in both versions, you know, like I'm still using that same idea. I'm not actually carving, but in my mind, I'm holding a carving tool and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like drawing. I don't know if that comes across to anybody else, you know, but it's just like it's something that I think about.
Yeah, yeah. I think those things come through for sure, and I think those are the things that like I'm starting to understand that the way you make a mark is a lot like your signature in the sense that it is yours and no one's writing your name the way you write it and no one makes marks the way you make marks. They might be the same dots or dashes or whatever, but like it is still different. And it's your hand, and that's what you know makes it distinct from anyone else, and it's still true to you. um but like if you were to drop the pressure of making things like on brand, what do you think is the first thing you would make? Not a vase, I'm sure.
You know? Like what I would draw,
Yeah.
it would be the same thing. It would be plants and animals. Like,
Okay. That's great.
yeah, I mean, I can't think of something else that I would want to draw instead, which I mean, maybe that's good. I don't know.
I think that's
Do you
great.
have something?
I mean, I've been dipping my toe lately in animals, drawing animals. Again, not sure why. I don't enjoy it right now because I'm not good at it. Doesn't mean I'm gonna quit. Doesn't mean I'm gonna keep going. I don't know. Um, yeah, I recently drew some pigeons and deer and fox. I'm like, well, just go with that. I don't know why. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it's not for anything that I can see. Um, but I have been enjoying that. Obviously, like my go-to is fruit. Obsessed. I'm just kind of getting annoyed with myself. Like, isn't it time to move on? But also, like, why should I? I think the world always needs fruit drawing.
Especially
Um,
now that we can't really eat much of it.
Especially now
So,
that you can't eat it. Yeah, we should draw more fruit so that we can have fruit in our life. Um, as I just ate strawberries this morning. Wish me luck. Um,
I know, I feel like every fruit eat or vegetable, you're just like taking a gamble here.
yeah, yeah. I mean, we'll find out in 2 weeks. In terms of developing your personal style, like let's say that you're on track and you have a brand, but you are interested in branching out a little bit and you're not sure how it might be received. I would say my first piece of advice is just like test it out in like a low stakes environment. I know we just did a podcast episode about Substack. That could be a great place, especially if you're overly conscious about the way your Instagram feed looks, which I still am. I'm not posting deer and foxes on my Instagram because I feel like people would be like, what is that? Whereas, like in Substack, I don't hesitate to post it there. So maybe you find a low stakes place to just sort of get comfortable sharing something that's different than what you normally would make.
And if you're not on Substack, like you could also use like stories, right? Stories are such a
Yeah,
low stakes spot to like drop
great,
something in,
great idea.
because it's gone in 24 hours.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
can
great.
save it if you want to highlight, but otherwise just kiss it goodbye. um,
Yeah, I think another tip is also just sort of like you don't have to, this is not like a forever commitment, right? You can just kind of call this like I'm exploring it for this summer or for this
mhm,
fall or just this month. I'm just going to try to experiment with these new materials or this new subject matter or whatever it is. It doesn't mean you're abandoning everything that you've built up to this point. So, like, if I want to start doing more animals, it doesn't mean that I don't still paint gouache, fruit using gouache and colored pencils. Like, that's just going to be there. It's just that for this moment, I'm trying something different. And
mhm,
so you can just tell yourself, like, I'm just doing it for a limited time and I just want to see what it's like. And then that kind of takes the pressure off feeling like you're entirely changing your business or what people quote expect from you.
mhm. Yeah. I think also all of those, all those places that you could drop something for a short period of time or whatever your low stakes spot is, that's also like a good opportunity to like get some feedback from somebody, whether that's your audience or your purchaser, your buyers, like you can use that data to kind of say, oh, it seems like people are open to this, to me adding animals or to this style or whatever. And that way, maybe you don't, like we were talking about, maybe you don't overnight just like flip and like you go from, all your work is block print to like my work is gouache and colored pencil to like maybe you start figuring out a way to transition into that style that you really want to work in.
Yeah. Yeah. And even I will say there were, maybe it was like 2 months ago, I dipped my toe into abstraction, like with acrylic. And back in the day, like when I was in college, I did some of that. So this is a world before anyone knew me now. So it wasn't unfamiliar to me. But then when I was
Hmm.
working on it, I was like, oh, this actually isn't like for me. Like I don't,
Mm,
I mean, I enjoy it to a small degree and it's fine, but it's not like where I want to invest my time. And so
hmm.
I tried that for a minute and then now I'm not doing that anymore. So it's like, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
All of this is no big deal. I mean, in the end, it's just art, right?
Yeah.
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 I mean, is that the best advice we have for the end of our second season? In the end, it's just art. I don't know. Is that bad advice? Like, don't take yourself so seriously. Even if it is your business
I
and you're trying
mean,
to make a living and support your life from it, don't take it so seriously.
I don't know. I mean, I always think that we come at this from a different place, right? Because we have these other jobs. Like, I can see how maybe that's what you should think about actually is like if you are taking that huge leap and like you are going all in and you're trying to build your whole life and your livelihood around this, those are times that you really need to like dial in and make sure that you are sticking to whatever brief you give yourself about what your work looks like based on what your buyers expect from you
Yeah, for sure.
because it is your livelihood. But if you're in a situation like the two of us where you have, you know, more of a safety net, then you can kind of be a little bit more free to like try things out and it's not going to be the end of the world, if that new style of tea towel you make or whatever like doesn't pan out.
So, though, I mean, just for you and me, I mean, we have said that we would like this to become our full time job.
Mhm.
Should we not be screwing around with trying all kinds of different things? And should we focus on going down a path, at
Mm.
least for a time? I feel like you don't have this problem. I feel like you're actually very focused and you do your thing. I feel like I'm the
Hmm.
one who's like all over the map. And maybe this is more a question for myself is like, do I need to rein it in and actually try to focus on something in terms of my style to further the brand and recognition and get my work on products and get it out into the world. That's just a question I need to figure out for myself. But because yes, I am being very flip about not taking it seriously, and I do understand that like there are some of you listening who are really trying to make this a business, and yeah, maybe the priority does need to be focusing on one path, getting that going, and then dabbling on the side until you feel
Mm-hmm.
ready to like add that to your offering.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that sounds quite sensible.
Very sensible, but my heart doesn't leap at the thought of it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is important.
Yeah. I mean, which is, we had that whole episode about this like crisis we're both in. It actually just brings me back to that idea, like, does this just need to go back to being something I do for fun? Like, if that's what I want. Um, I still don't know the answer either. So,
For someone who's actually looking for advice on style, Lisa Congdon has a great book. There are a lot of
hmm.
YouTube videos out there. Obviously, we're not pretending to give you like a how to about your personal style. We are coming from our own experience. We are sharing our own stories, just a different perspective. But if you're looking for like, do this, do this, do this, do this, just go to Lisa Congdon for advice because there's plenty of things out there on Lisa with Lisa and her tips for personal style. She has a couple of books that are, I think, very helpful, especially if you're just starting out um, in terms of developing your style. But for us, we're winging it. Um, so this is the end of episode 10, season 2. Very
Hmm.
quickly, what surprised you about this season?
A few things. I think, not that I thought we finished season 1 and I had said everything I had to say, but also there was that feeling of like, do we have enough to say to make another season? Turns out we do. So there's that. I also think I'm always so surprised that you and I have a lot of these like similar
Mm,
feelings, crises, whatever at the same time. And I don't know what that's about, like, but I think it's just so helpful to have somebody to talk to and to like go through those things with.
yeah,
Um, so I think it just goes back to like one of the things that I'm always trying to build is like community, and you can have a community of the two of us. Like that's fine. Like you don't need a million people to
no,
have community, but if you have someone, it's so helpful, and it's just like the person that you can talk to about your business that isn't like your spouse or your best friend who might get tired of hearing about these things or maybe has a perspective that I don't know, doesn't I don't know, they're a different perspective, we'll say that. I don't know, what have you found surprising?
I agree. I never think I have enough to say about anything, and then I find myself talking too much. Um, I think one of the surprising things was was the episode where we talked about our crisis. Is it worth it?
Mhm.
Because I feel like it was a pretty vulnerable episode, and we just really shared like our true feelings in this process slash quest, not journey. And it was just really refreshing. And I just think if we can help even just a handful of people feel like they're not going through these challenges by themselves, or if there's any small tip that we can offer, even just one tip to one person out of 20 episodes total would be pretty cool.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, I think one thing that surprised me about this season and the last season is just that we did it.
Yeah.
I'm like,
No, same.
oh, we did that. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We did it. So
Yeah, I think that, oh, so one more thing. I was talking to my Aunt Sue the other day,
Oh,
and
Aunt Sue.
Aunt Sue, who gave us some nice comments and gave a shout out to Stacy recently. um,
Thank you,
but
Aunt Sue.
she she's probably like my biggest supporter on YouTube, which is like so nice. And she's an artist herself, like she's a photographer and like went to photography school, like artist capital A. And she always gives me feedback on my videos, like in a very like kind way, and it's always like, here's some things I noticed that were good and here's a thing I noticed that you could improve on. And it's so interesting because I don't get that from anyone else really. One of the pieces of feedback that she gave me when I had a call with her last week was that my presence on video has changed and that I look more comfortable. And I said to her, I was like, that is 100% because of the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because my YouTube videos are like scripted and I like think them through. And this, while we aspire to have a lot of preparation, in practice we do not. And so this is like my opportunity to riff and have conversations with you in real time most of the time. And so that has significantly changed, other parts of my life. So that's something that surprised me, that somebody else gave me that feedback recently and was like, "Oh, yeah, I can see that."
I would never have been able to do Sketchbook Revival if we had not been doing this podcast. I would never
Mhm.
have been able to go live with Helen on Substack if we had not been doing this podcast. So,
Yeah.
yeah, thanks to
Yeah,
you.
it's just like an interesting, like unexpected. I don't know why I wouldn't have expected that outcome, but like it's become very clear to me how this has affected other things.
Yeah, I think even with my teaching yoga,
Mm.
just the comfortability in hearing your own voice um,
Mhm.
has
Yeah.
helped with that as well. So thank you to
Yeah.
you for doing this
Thank
with
you to
me.
you.
Um, to our listeners, at the end of this episode about style, maybe you want to put in the comment, is there something you might do to allow your personal style to evolve without like waiting for permission? Um,
Mhm.
what thing maybe will you try to do differently to help that along? Maybe just put that in the comments because it's always fun to see how people stretch themselves and
Mhm.
try new things with their style. Yeah.
Yeah. And just thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. And that's a wrap.
season 2 done.
Thanks so much for listening to Art After Dark. If you connected with today's episode, we'd love for you to subscribe and share it with a friend who's on their own creative quest. And if you want to follow along with our work, you'll find all the links in the show notes. Until next time, keep creating, and we'll see you after dark.